And in order to try to trigger some interest and concern on the part of my colleagues, you need to be wary when a person of my ilk will approach you and say, these are very reasonable amendments. That is the perfect strategy to persuade people to lower their guard and accept what's being said. I believe this is a good amendment, but there are other things that I felt and believed deeply were good amendments which were not adopted. I had my teeth kicked in yesterday as a result of my very meritorious attempt to lower the sales tax from 5.5% to 5%. Now that was a very good amendment of considerable consequence. And even though I presented a lengthy discussion and argument to persuade you of that point, I did not persuade enough of you. Now here I come with something that is dealing with a very important piece of legislation. And you're just going to let me stand on this floor and say, I'm asking you to do this, and you just look at me and say, okay. Well, I guess maybe so. Certain things being done in order to achieve locally determined groundwater management objectives. Well, I've been discussing this bill with Mr. Cookson, or is it Crookson? I've had plays on his name in my mind, and that's not what I want to do today, so I want to get it right. It's Mr. Cookson. But I was going to make some kind of comment based on what people told me about why people of that party are called Republicans, or the river's called Republican after them, because it's so crooked. Well, I was going to say because he is dealing with the river issue, his name is appropriate, which is Crookson, but it's not Crookson, it's Cookson. So I wanted to be sure that I got his name correct, so I looked at the card that he gave me. And I want Mr. Cookson to know, because wherever he is, he's listening. This amendment is not for the purpose of giving or making a play on his name, but to point out that he and I have been discussing this bill. Any answers that I needed to any questions, he assured me he would be forthcoming with such answers. Oh, Senator Loudon, do you like lemon pie?
Pardon?
Do you like lemon pie?
If it's got meringue on it.
You read my mind. I was going to tell you, this is the meringue on top of the lemon pie.
Determined, should we have an or in there, an and or?
Senator Loudon, do you like lemon pie or cherry pie?
No, I'd rather have lemon.
Okay. In some situations, we can say either or when it doesn't matter which you take, or you might have one but not the other. In this case, we should use the conjunction and, because we're talking about both. Oh, let me ask Senator Langemeyer a question.
Senator Langemeyer, will you yield to a question?
Yes.
Senator Langemeyer, could you turn to page 3 of the committee amendments?
Yep.
In line 6, would it bother you if I would move the word necessary so that it precedes regulation instead of having it follow regulation, so that it says, the current language says, resulting from regulation necessary pursuant to, I would say resulting from necessary regulation pursuant to. Or don't you see any difference?
I guess I would have to be sold on your justification.
I'll leave it alone.
To the importance.
I'll leave it alone. It's not really important probably to anybody other than me. Because to show you the way I feel, and that's all I'll ask you, Senator Langemeyer, thank you. I think ain't is a word that ought to be given the dignity and status of acceptable usage. Ain't could be a word that can be used to express the singular or the plural. I ain't he ain't, they ain't. Now I have to say, if speaking of myself, I am not. He is not. They are not. But ain't is like a utility word. It fits every situation, and English is a language that's supposed to be alive and growing. Just because something seemed appropriate ages ago doesn't mean it can never change. You all would understand high-tech changes. If you can make these gadgets on our desk work a lot faster, you would do that because you want to get from point A to point B as quickly as possible. And for those who might know, I got a long way to go and a short time to get there. We're going to do what they say can't be done. You've heard that? That comes from Smokey and the Bandit. And they had to get a load of liquor from one point in one state to another point in another state. And Smokey was the cop. Burt Reynolds was the bandit. He was going to drive this souped-up sports car in front of this semi full of liquor. And he would be the decoy. And Smokey would chase the decoy. And that would let the semi go where it's going. But that's another definition for jet propulsion. Long way to go, times short time to get there equals jet propulsion. If we would use the word ain't in language, we're doing the same thing. Remember, I ain't, you ain't, he, she, it ain't, they ain't. Fits everything. So why is it rejected? Why? So, I ain't going to tell you that I ain't going to use ain't as we proceed during the session, but if I do, you'll know why. And that's all I would have to say on this amendment.
That change, do we infer that that which is not money that might have been gleaned from this originally is now is precedent, I guess?
Here's the way I would answer that, Senator Fulton. That is. That is not, is not. That is not that is, and that is not that is not.
And that ain't Smokey and the Bandit.
And Senator Chambers. Senator Chambers, there ain't any other senators wishing to speak. You are recognized to close on FA 87.
Thank you, Mr. President. And in view of the fact that Senator Flood ain't over there and his seatmate ain't over there, he's lucky his seatmate ain't over there, because if his seatmate had seen Smokey and the Bandit and knew who Junior was, I don't think Senator Flood would be standing in full health right here today. And anybody who has not seen that movie, you ought to see it the next time it comes on. In closing, I would just like to do something which I would want to do because I had seen it done when people get an Oscar. I cannot act well enough to be cast in a movie. And if I were cast in a movie, it would not have the quality that would result in an Oscar being given. But what I hate more than anything else, but would like to do to punish people for having the Oscar ceremony. Thank everybody I could think of, and those I couldn't. So in view of the fact that many have worked on this bill, here's what I would like to do. I'd like to thank the following senators: Adams, Aguilar, Ashford, Avery, Burling, Carlson, Chambers, Christensen, Cornett, Dirks, Dubas, Engel, Erdman, Fisher, Flood, Friend, Fulton, Gay, Hanson, Harms, Heidemann, Howard, Hudkins, Jansen, Johnson, Karpachek, Copeland, Cruz, Langemeyer, Lathrop, Loudon, McDonald, McGill, Mines, Nankis, Nelson, Pauls, Pankinen, Peterson, Persh, Preister, Rakes, Rogert, Shimmick, Stuthman, Sinowicki, Snicky, Wallman, White, and Whiteman. I'm thanking those who were directly involved. I'm thanking those who were indirectly involved, and I'm thanking those who simply stayed out of the way. And Mr. President, thank you.